Remember the killer, the lyrical beats, I'm gon' murder ya. Humping you like a hernia. You suck, I'm just confirming it. And if you get offended, then clearly be talking about you. Get off the bandwagon, get you swinging on dicks and get your brand accurate.
Yo, what up, people? It's your boy, The Laugh King, coming at you with another NBA podcast. Last couple of days, I've been sick like crazy. It's the first time I've ever been sick in like 4 years. I would have like a bug here and there, but like this was something different, man. I think my twin brother got me sick. You know, he's always on my Xbox coughing and shit. And I'm just like, man, you gotta like cover that up, man. You gotta like wipe it down with some Clorox or something, man, because he got me sick, man. But anyways, I'm getting my voice back, as you can tell. I pretty much didn't have a voice on the weekend, and it's back. So now that it's back, I actually want to talk about another podcast about Kawhi Leonard in Toronto. Plus, I want to give my thoughts on the Clippers and their little tactics on what they're doing. Because, I don't know, I think there's a lot of misleading information that's out there in regards to Kawhi Leonard and the Raptors, mainly in the American media, because, you know, a lot of the GMs and stuff like that, they try to use the media to manipulate perception. And the way we see it up here in Toronto is like, we don't even see it the exact same way. So, to start off the podcast, I just want to talk about how the Raptors really already have an advantage over the Clippers. Number one, Nick Nurse. As some of you recall, back in training camp, Nick Nurse and Kawhi Leonard actually sat down for their first conversation. They said it was supposed to be like 20 minutes or something like that, but they ended up talking for like an hour, and it was all about strictly basketball. It was all strictly like how can Nick Nurse use Kawhi in the offense, defensive schemes and stuff like that. They were picking each other's brains. Now, I don't remember ever recalling anything like that. It might happen here and there in the NBA, but that's a rare situation in the NBA, because usually coaches will talk to their players or whatever, and you know, they'll just talk about their role and stuff like that. But Nick Nurse, he's actually trying to, you know, help each player. You know, he's trying to put every player in a successful position, and that's something that I didn't like about Dwayne Casey, because Dwayne Casey, he'll be like, "This is your role, that's it," right? Which is why I think Ibaka struggled under him. And this year, Ibaka is somewhat playing a bit better. Number two would be, if you listen to the Danny Green interviews. Danny Green has had a lot of interviews since he came to Toronto. And he was also suggesting that Kawhi Leonard may feel at home in Toronto. You gotta use those key words. You know, he's feeling at home in Toronto. And Danny Green, he already said that he loves Toronto too, so he hasn't been shy about, you know, his love for the city. Toronto is actually one of the best cities in the world if you have money. So like, if you have a lot of money, the only thing I think LA has an advantage over Toronto is weather. That's it. Like, if you come to Toronto, there's always something going on in Toronto. Like, it doesn't even matter what your interest is. Always something to do in Toronto. So they haven't even scratched the surface, because I don't even think they were here during the whole summer, but they're gonna get to see how it is in the wintertime and stuff like that. I don't think we're gonna have a bad winter this year. They're saying it might be cold, but whatever. It's always minus 15 at least at some point in like February or something like that. So that's a given. So it's not as cold as like, you know, in the Midwest, but it's like around the same temperature as New York and, you know, maybe even Boston, like those type of cities and stuff like that. So whenever you see these American medias talking about, oh, it's cold in Canada, they're just being stupid, because like, you guys love New York and stuff like that, but you know, when it comes to Toronto, apparently Toronto's like really cold compared to those other cities. It's not. Half the time in the wintertime, I'm in a hoodie walking around the city. Like, I have layers on, but I have a hoodie, right? Unless it gets to minus 10, minus 15, like, I don't even need to wear a jacket half the time. So they're just running their mouth about that. They always find something to talk about, and it's always the weather. I remember Chris Broussard said something about, when Andrew Wiggins, it was an Andrew Wiggins thing in Cleveland, and he was saying that, Andrew Wiggins, he loves the cold because he's from Toronto. I'm like, what? Like, stuff like that. It's like they use the same tactics over and over again when they're talking about Toronto. They try to downplay Toronto as this, mediocre city. They're trying to say Toronto's like a mediocre city, but every NBA player would tell you that Toronto's one of the best cities to visit. Right? I can go on and on about Toronto. I've been here pretty much my whole life. So, anyways, let me get on to the next one. I kind of talked about it, but the Clippers, I think the Clippers is paying the media to pretty much make stuff up, because how would they know if the Raptors are panicking about Kawhi Leonard's free agency? Well, I gotta drink some water real quick. Yeah, so Woj and some other guy was on some ESPN broadcast, and they were saying that how the Raptors are in panic mode over Kawhi Leonard's free agency, which is BS, because first of all, they didn't even know who the Raptors were going to draft a couple years ago. They kept their lips sealed, I should say, on who they were going to draft it. And not even Woj was tweeting. So, if anything, maybe if they got that information from anyone, it could be Kawhi Leonard's, reps. But I don't think they're going to, say anything about that. Right? Like, I don't think they're going to give ESPN any type of, lead on what Kawhi Leonard's free agency is, because at the end of the day, I think Kawhi Leonard already knows what he's gonna do, right? Like, you make a trade to Toronto, you get to see what the city's like, you get to see how they're building the team. Well, Toronto's always been competitive, but right now under Masai Ujiri, they're talking conference championships and they're talking NBA finals and stuff like that. So, last couple years ago, they actually made the conference finals. They lost to Cleveland. So, Raptors are knocking on that door. So I feel that, a lot of the stuff that you see in the media, it's the same kind of tactics that you will see with, like, New York, because you always hear about certain players going to New York, going to the Knicks. You always hear about certain players going to the Lakers. And I think the Clippers are trying to do that use those same tactics to push perception on Kawhi's free agency. But in reality, nobody knows. Like, I think Kawhi knows, but he's just taking it one day at a time, and he's just playing his game, getting back in shape, getting ready for these playoffs, because the playoffs is going to say a lot of things about this Raptor team. That's pretty much what you have to judge the Raptors on. The top 5 teams in the East, it's going to be very competitive up there. So everybody got to be healthy going into the playoffs, so the Raptors can make their run. On the Raptors part, this is number 4. On the Raptors end, they can't make anything feel forced with Kawhi Leonard, because Kawhi Leonard has a laid-back personality, and I'm kind of like the same way. I have a laid-back personality unless I'm like clubbing or something, then I start wilding out. But when things start to feel non-organic, that's when you should start having an issue with Kawhi Leonard. I know at the beginning of the season they were kind of babying him because he wasn't playing back-to-backs or anything. He just came off an injury. They're trying to keep that groin from flaring up again, so they have him sitting out a couple games back-to-backs and stuff like that. But the games where he's played and the games where the Raptors had a full squad, even when the Raptors didn't have him in the lineup, they were killing teams. So, they just got to make sure everyone's healthy to get into the playoffs. And I think that's where they need to do. That's where they got to show what they're good at. So, but a lot of things, they can't make anything feel forced, right? I know Drake is going to do his thing. He's going to talk to Kawhi. They actually had a picture of him and Kawhi, and Drake had a smiley face. You never know what Drake's really thinking when he does these posts, because Drake is very cryptic sometimes, and he also had like a smiley face. But you don't know what that smiley face was about. It could be because they both weren't smiling in the picture. It could also mean Kawhi told him what he's doing in the free agency, right? You never know. But the thing about that picture is that on the same day where Woj and those guys were on there talking about Raptors panicking about Kawhi's free agency, Drake posts that picture. So, and everything Drake does, if you follow Drake for his whole career, you might not like Drake or anything, but you know his tactics. That's what he does, right? So that right there could be a shot at ESPN, right? You can look into it. Doesn't matter. So, but I think Kawhi Leonard is liking his time in Toronto. He's got such a crazy poker face that you can't even tell what he's trying to do. They try to ask him BS questions so they can probably try to loosen him up a bit, but he doesn't break, man. He doesn't break. So we'll see where it goes. And last but not least, I think this is number 5. What are the Clippers building over there? Ask yourself that. What are the Clippers building over there that is really a threat to what the Raptors are doing right now in Toronto, or what has the Raptors been doing for the last 4 or 5 years, right? That's just the way I'm looking at it, because really, the Clippers were the top seed in the West maybe 2 weeks ago. But if you look at the standing as of 12-19, they're 17-13, 56%. 4 games behind the top seed Denver Nuggets, but they've been on a 4-game losing streak. So who knows what those guys are building over there or what they want to build. Like I said, the only I'll say this, they have a great defensive makeup. They have guys like Patrick Beverly and stuff like that. They have guys that they can actually play defense, but if you're a star player, why would you want to go to the Western Conference, right? The only reason why LeBron went to LA was to play basketball, obviously, but he wants those Hollywood ties, right? He wants to do Space Jam. He wants to produce movies and stuff like that, which is why he signed that 4-year deal. And plus, his son is over there playing basketball. That's why LeBron went over there. If none of those things were a factor, no way LeBron goes to the Lakers. No way. He would either stay in Cleveland, and like he said, he would have gone to New York, because New York is another place where LeBron can do those kinds of things, right? So LA is where he went, and that's where he is right now, and he's got the Lakers at 18-13 over there. So, but if you look at the West, every team is competing, man. The only team that's not really competing in there is maybe the Phoenix Suns. Right, so the 8th seed is the 14th seed Utah Jazz is 2 games behind, 2.5 games behind the 8th seed Sacramento Kings. So the West is wild, man. So I think over the next couple of years you'll see a lot of those star players come over to the Eastern Conference, right? Because the East has so much more room, operating room. You have the Celtics, you have Sixers, Indiana, Milwaukee, and Toronto. Every other team is 500 or less. So there's a lot of ways star players can come to the Eastern Conference over the next couple of years and actually compete for something. It's hard to do in the West, right? So I don't know, man. I just to me personally, it might seem like a biased podcast, but y'all know I'm a Pacer fan, so I'm just speaking on the subject because I live in Toronto. And I just feel, to me, I feel Kawhi Leonard is going to stay in Toronto. Right? just can't see a scenario where he goes to the Clippers, right? Because going out west playing for the Clippers is, to me, it's like, what are you gonna do? Like, Toronto has so much more to offer with that roster than what the Clippers are gonna do. And Pascal Siakam is so underrated. This guy just causes havoc, man. Like, anyways, I'm gonna. Oh, you know what? And you also got to look at the conference record. Before I go, I got to look at the conference record. As of 12-19, the Raptors are 13-5 with the conference records. Right? All the top teams in the East, except for maybe Philadelphia 76ers, don't struggle in the Eastern Conference. Right? But you look at, let me see what the Clippers conference record is. Clippers conference record is 12-9. So what are the Clippers really doing over there? They're not doing anything. They're like the LA Lakers. They're looking for a star player that they can build around. Hopefully they can do something. So I'm going to leave it at that. What do you guys think about the whole Kawhi Leonard situation? Do you guys think he's staying, or do you think he's leaving? Like I said, I think he's staying. I don't think there's anything that the Clippers can offer him that Toronto can't. And I'm out of here. I'm going to leave it at that. All right? Peace.
Got a confession. I possess the God particle, lock me up for possession. Your relationship with God should be great for proper protection. If I am to show and prove, ain't no need to ask me no question. The segregation real, you should probably stay in your section.